guidelines a new approach. So, this size and buildings, so see the project design data. Project design data includes the geographic locations, proximity to roads and railways, topography and local codes and regulations. Also, these weather conditions such as for rivers, similar temperature difference, wind differences, outlet points for drains. This data affects the design of stormwater drains and requirement of enclosures. Further, the wind can influence the location of cooling towers, furnace, and shelter stacks. Grade elevations is usually referred to datum such as plus 100 meter and is referred to an absolute level in the plot plan. This is fixed at the ground floor of one of the major process plants, and it is absolutely essential to establish a consistent elevation relationship between the various facilities. The plants and the major equipments are located with reference coordinates that are established in the plot plans. And the size characteristics decides the foundation depth and the required area to be occupied. This affects the equipment spacing to take care of foundation interference and layout of drains. And then see the equipment size and buildings. Equipment includes the fabricated equipments such as vessels, heat exchangers, reactors, tanks, and preparatory equipment such as pumps, compressors, furnace, filters. The layout and piping arrangement characteristics of each of these shall be dealt with the subsequently. However, certain general principles are followed in locating the same. The equipment is a group to have the optimum location for minimum pipe. Process flow sequence is followed to establish the functional performance of the same. In equipment size and layouts, we'll see the first uh, criteria, that is inline layouts. In inline layout, exchangers are placed next to towers, thermosymphon recoilers, which have large
बारी
diameter
बंद करो ना
spans,
पार्सल में भैया
are
कौन
attached to
है
towers as well. Tower arranged with individual platforms or with common platforms for several in a line. Generally, surge drums, storage vessels, coolers, heaters are placed between distillation column in the process flow sequence. Now, next criteria, that is similar equipment grouping. In similar equipment grouping, operating or maintenance, convenience and safety consideration can detect the grouping of equipments. Group exchangers and lineup channels ends make possible the use of a common gantry crane moving on rails in the front for bundle removals. Might be you have studied the gantry cranes in your design of mechanical system DMS, and the use of common gantry crane moving on rails in the front for bundle removals. Columns can be lined up to have a common platforms for manholes and wall operations. Reactors or stated catheters can be grouped to have a common operating levels and lifting beam for the agitators. Utility equipment is normally housed together for operating convenience process compressor under one roof are frequent requirements. The pumps in a row can facilitate a better rack layout, cable arrangement, and maintenance accessibility in similar equipment groupings. Now, third criteria in equipment sizes and building, that is a functional equipment grouping. Cost of alloy steel, stainless steel
नील कटर
piping
आपण
initiates a
नील
compact
कटर आपण
arrangement of equipments. bolting condensers on top of distillation column as a part of the same, stacking heat exchanger one above the other are same examples. Reactors are arranged in a row which need crane or trolley for removing equipment's internals and for material handling equipments. Equipment containing acids or toxic material is a group and located within a POW and cup area which will have the facility to drain out the effluent treatment plant or for neutralizing it. The building size in an outdoor plant includes the different kind of rooms. There are the control rooms, laboratories, and space required for personal facilities. These are worked out in coordination with electrical instrumentation and civil or structural groups. So that kind of guidelines we have to follow the equipment sizes and buildings. Now next criteria is guidelines a new approach in guidelines a new approach in piping layout. So these layout guidelines for major equipments are based on minimum distance required between various types of equipments to meet the insertion regulation. They are designed to help prevent major catastrophes, especially when highly inflammable chemicals are involved. These guidelines, while useful, often include ambiguous entries such as provide spacing based on assess for operation and maintenance as required and not applicable. Hence, these guidelines only could still result in crowded plants. The solution is to study each piece of equipment to determine the needs of operation and maintenance. This, however, is an extremely time consuming activity and is quite possible to be overlooked or not accounted for certain specific needs. As a result, plant layout becomes a subjective topic left to an experienced piping engineers. A quantitative method is evolved by earlier piping engineers for evaluating the quality of a given layout in the early part of design. Two complementary calculations meet these criteria. The results are then compared to those of plant in similar service. Both good and bad layouts used in conjunction with established practices. This new approach can improve engineers' ability to evaluate the equipment layouts. So, in guidelines, we see the different calculations. First calculation is calculation. Area calculation make a area drawing of the layout all the major
પેલું એસી સર્વિસ
equipments.
કરીને
What
ગયો છે.
kind of major equipments such as
એસી
air
સર્વિસિંગ વાળો આવેલો બધું સાફ
handlers,
કરીને ગયો છે.
filters,
કોણ?
columns,
એસી
vessels,
સર્વિસિંગ વાળો
pumps,
આવેલો
and
બધું
other
સાફ કરીને ગયો છે.
devices.
ડેડી 3 વાર કીધું મેં.
Whether the area
થોડો
actually occupied by
ઇન્ડોર
each
આઉટડોર બેવ કર્યું.
equipment and the
ડોર
total
વાગ્યું છે ને.
area of the plant.
ઓકે.
Now compare this value with that
આ તમે આ પેલું કબાટ
plants
ખોલો.
on the or similar service. We can ask the operator
પેલી પિંક કલરની સ્ટીકર છે
personnel
આ
of
રબર
these
વાળી જો
plants
તો
whether
પર્પલ
the
પર્પલ
area
હેન્ડલ
is
હશે.
adequate, crowded, or roomy. First, compare the proposed layout with that of the existing plants. So that's concerned the area calculation. Now, in guidelines, new approach that is volume calculation. In volume calculation, as a second part of the evaluation, make a similar study by comparing the equipment volumes. Calculate the volume of each major piece of equipment with the total volume of the plant. Then compare the result with the volume ratio of the existing plants in similar services. Adjust the size of the plant and the equipment layouts. If necessary, the, we have to consider the different guidelines. These guidelines are helpful in improving the accuracy comparisons. Make the comparison to a similar plant as possible. Then use similar assumption in analyzing both existing facilities and new designs. Where volume has less relevance than in an indoor structure, rely on the area comparison alone. For tank farm, as concerned the tank farm, general guidelines dictated for fire safety reasons or statutory requirements cover. These are the general guidelines for equipment. Minimum spacing shall be given in regulatory code as per the ASME standards, so that we have to follow that kind of regulations. Then we have to new area to certain equipment layouts or unit plan drawings. That kind of guidelines are designed for the regulatory layouts. Then we have to consider the equipment layout or unit plant shall be drawn in 1 is to 50 or 1 is to 100 scale. So already we have studied the different kind of we can enlarge the scale or reduce the scale as per the requirement of the uh, plant layouts. So if we have ideas of how to enlarge the scale, then we can fix that kind of scale, that is 1 is to 50 or 1 is to 100. So as far as concerned, the different kind of papers we can use. For this purpose, we can go for the A0 size drawing sheet. Should generally be used for areas to be covered. Then A1 size can be used. We have studied the different kind of drawing sheets in engineering graphics or engineering drawings, might be A0, A1, A2, A3, A4. So that kind of drawing sheets we can use for equipment layouts or unit plant drawings. Now we can place the north arrow at the top right hand corner of the sheet and to indicate the plant north direction. The area above title block is to keep free for general notes drawings. All equipments are marked with its equipment number appearing in equipment lists and dimensions. In dimension, we'll consider the diameter, height, length, etc. All equipment center lines are located in plant buildings. With respect to the column grid, for layout of outdoor plant or off-site facility, the equipment shall be located by coordinates. In construction layouts, P&D or vendors or fabricated equipment drawings are to be used as a basic document for preparing equipment layout drawings. Walkways, cutouts, pipe racks, floor drains, gutter, trenches, ramp, etc., if applicable, should be clearly marked in the drawing. For in-house plant layout, the location of staircase, lift, and other utility area should be clearly shown in the drawing sheets. In the equipment drawing, for each equipment, its topmost or bottommost elevation should be marked. Then, orientation of equipment shall be clearly marked for all the equipments by orienting one of the major nozzles. In case of reactor, case of reactor stands the location of manholes hose, then we have to consider must be at accessible positions. Equipment lifting cutouts shall be marked clearly in the drawings. Equipment plan to be installed in future shall be in dotted. For heat exchanger, tube removal or cleaning space shall be marked. While locating the pumps to ensure that the regulatory requirement is met. General notes are written or but a reference shall be given. So try to use if more than one drawing is required to cover and the layout should indicate this along with the dynamic factors wherever applicable. This could also be covered as per the regulatory codes. For reactors with agitators, lifting beam shall be provided for agitator renewals. For vendor requirements, maintenance space as recommended for them for maintenance shall be provided. Equipment layout shall so indicate the position of utility stations, safety and shower and eye wash. Equipment elevation shall be so arranged to ensure gravity flow where specified. Now, then different kind of layouts, we have to refer the different kind of layouts. That kind of layouts we call the typical layouts. In terms of the equipment's arrangement, the equipment layout means equipment layout is nothing but the unit plot plan can be basically divided into two configurations. The first one is the grade mounted horizontal arrangement, and we can see that kind of arrangement in petrochemical plants and refinery plants, that grade mounted horizontal arrangements. The next is vertical arrangement found in many chemical process industries. Irrespective the type of arrangement, there are certain basic principles to the locating the equipments or unit plot plans in this grade mounted horizontal arrangement and vertical arrangements. They found seen in the refineries, petrochemical industries, or petrochemical plants or chemical process. So here we have to consider their basic equipments and their principles by locating the equipments. First one is the economic pipings. To minimize cost of piping requirement, the equipment should be located in process sequence and close enough to suit safety needs, access requirements, and flexibilities. Identify the group of equipment that form a subsystem within the unit and the component within the subsystem to be arranged to have the most economical piping and the whole subsystem to be placed within the unit to have most economic interconnections. Now, next criteria in the typical layout, that is a process requirement. In the process requirement, the equipment layout should support the requirements such as minimum pressure drop, gravity feed, and loop. The piping engineers should discuss such requirements with the process engineer before proceeding with these arrangements. The third criteria in typical layouts, that is common operations, equipment that shares common maintenance facilities, common utility, and continuous operator attention should be located in the same area. Although this may turn out to be expensive in terms of piping arrangement. The use of common building and equipment handling facilities will make up for the difference in cost. So we have to consider that kind of criteria while selecting the guidelines in a new approach. Next is underground facilities. In underground facilities, piping engineer should investigate the facilities such as storm water drain, effluent drains, fire waters, cooling water, deciding to be placed underground before deciding the equipment positions. Depending upon the soil conditions, the foundation will be either piled or sprayed. Footing. Spread footing foundation will require more space, and equipment should be spaced to shoot in certain cases. Multiple equipment could be placed on a common foundations. Next criteria guidelines a new approach, that is a climatic conditions. Whether the condition influence the type of enclosures and location of equipments. Wind influence the location of cooling towers and stacks. So that kind of guidelines we have to follow in the piping industries. As far as concerned, the grades mounted in horizontal arrangement and vertical arrangement. Let us see the first type is a grade mounted arrangement in horizontals. In the grade mounted horizontal in the line unit, the equipment are placed on either side of the central pipe rack with auxiliary rods. The main advantage of this arrangement is that the equipments are located at ground at grade levels, which makes it easier to construct, operate and maintain. But there is some disadvantage. Disadvantage is that it takes a lot of ground area.
हाँ टपक
The typical layout of grade mounted outdoor petrochemical plants, and the cross section of such a unit is different, and we have to show the different sketches. So in principle, all these variations of the layout shown there are in same. One or two lines of process equipments are placed along the pipe racks. Maintenance roads are provided parallel to pipe rack and process equipments. And to consider the next pipe rack, that is a central pipe rack, is economical and can place different equipments. And in this rack, we have to consider the air coolers can be placed over the pipe rack, while those at ground will increase the ground coverage. When the pumps are lined up under the pipe rack with central access and air coolers placed above, the insertion requirement may ask for the sprinklers above this pump. This type of layout is most economical, and thousands of petrochemical plants are built all over the world using these principles. This is about the grade mounted horizontal plants. In grade horizontal plants, when the pumps are placed outside the rack, that will increase the distance between the pipe rack and the process equipment resulting. In additional piping lanes, these arrangements can consider the petrochemical industries. The one-sided arrangement
can see in piping industries are more expensive since only one side of the area is used to locate the process equipments. However, if only a narrow area is available and or if expansion is to be taken off in future, these arrangements gives optimum solution, and the control room and furnace are placed outside the main process area, keeping the required safe distance. And auxiliary pipe rack is required to run cables to control room and piping from furnace to process area. The safety distance and maximum allowable length of transfer line influence the furnace location. The basic principle is to be remembered while locating equipment in all these cases is to eliminate, combine, and minimize structure to achieve cost savings. This is the basic criteria. We call the basic principle in the structure mounted horizontal arrangement. Now, next type of structure mounted is vertical arrangements. So, in this structure mounted vertical arrangement has equipment located at multi levels in steel or concrete structures. This could be indoor or outdoors. The advantage of this are small amount of ground coverage and the ability to house the facility to suit a process requirements or climate conditions. The basic principle of locating equipments in an indoor and outdoor plant remains same. The applicable principle is economic. In a multi-level layout, the vertical relationship of equipment also be considered. The confined building does not change the philosophy of equipment layout and piping designs. However, the requirement of operation and maintenance differ. In a building, mobile platform can be used extensively, but it is not practicable outdoors. Hence, permanent local platforms are more common in outdoor plants. Mobile cranes can be used in outdoor for maintenance. In indoor, tube pooling area for exchanger is to be built. Building will be costly if this facility is to be included or else. The exchanger will have to be shifted to workshop for cleaning, which again will need more time and hence cost will be increased. Removal of large vessels, glass line kettles will need space above or below and also access sail to outsides with adequate clearance, lifting beams with cranes located with negligible initial cost and can make substantial saving in future maintenance costs. So this is all about the typical layout. So as concerned, the structure mounted horizontal arrangement and structure mounted vertical arrangements. So now, do you have any questions, any doubts? So from equipment size and buildings, and then we have discuss about the guidelines and new approach. In guidelines and new approach, we have discussed the typical layout, and we have considered the different kind of layouts. One is a horizontal, another is a vertical structure mounted layouts. If you have any questions, so you can ask your questions or doubts. Yes, anyone. Yes, Aditi, Chaitanya, Tejas,
No doubt.
okay, Suraj, Aditya Singh, Harshal, Srikant.
No doubt, sir.
No doubt, sir.
Okay, anyone? Atharv is there? Okay. Aditi, do you have any questions, any doubts? Aditi is there?
Yes, sir. No, I have no doubt, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay, anyone, any doubts, any questions? So you can ask your doubts. Syllabus for MST, Harshal, still we have time, so we'll declare syllabus, don't worry.
And so, what kind of questions can we expect in the MST? And if possible, can you please share some previous year papers as well?
No, there is no previous papers. This year we started this elective. Earlier, before 4 years back, we have started. Okay, and then after that, this semester we started. Some questions will be 4 or 5 marks. Total question 4 or 5 marks. Each question carries minimum 4 marks or maximum 5 marks. In between, we can ask for some questions for 2 marks or 3 marks. Yes, Harshal.
Yes, sir, got it.
Okay, I will upload assignment, then you will get the more idea about the question pattern. Okay.
Yes, sir, fine.
Okay, fine. Anyone, any questions, any doubts? Yes. Tejas. Tejas is there. Okay, then we'll close this session here and we'll continue tomorrow. Okay, fine.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine.